In Tuesday's primary election in New York's 17th congressional district, national security expert and combat veteran Kate Conley won the Democratic nomination for a key swing seat that could help determine control of the House in November. Her victory sets up a showdown with Hudson Valley Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, who has seemed to try balancing more moderate policy positions while also defending President Trump. And U.S. congressional Democratic nominee Kate Conley joins us now. She served as director for counterterrorism on the National Security Council under former President Biden and served 6 tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Let's start there. Talk about your tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. When did you serve there? And
how they shaped you.
And what did you do there? And how did they shape you, especially your work in the special ops?
Well, thank you so much for having me and talking about this important fight, not just for New York 17 and the Hudson Valley, but truly the country. And so my journey in service started right after high school. You know, following the terror attacks on 9/11, it was service and those values that the Hudson Valley inspired in me that led me to go off to West Point and then serve for 16 years on active duty, the privilege of a lifetime leading America's sons and daughters in defense of this nation. And yes, becoming one of the first women to lead in the special ops community, doing multiple tours overseas. It was always about the same thing. Love for this country, love for our community, and a willingness to fight to make sure our nation's best days are still ahead of us. And that is what this fight is about today. You know, I talk a lot about how I'm watching the country that I was willing to die for, that I've lost countless friends fighting for, becoming something I barely recognize. And that's unacceptable.
You know, when I was serving back in the 90s, it was the sort of the end of an era where World War II vets and Korean vets were there. But they had such a remarkable impact, especially when I served on the Armed Services Committee. They had this extraordinary understanding of what tours of duties, repeated tours of duty, lack of resources would do for readiness, would do not only to those serving in uniform, but for the families left behind. Talk about how important you believe it is that we have representatives that have served in combat, that has served in uniform. I can tell you, as someone who didn't, every day I benefited by having veterans and war heroes around me in Congress that helped show me the way on tough issues. Talk about why you think it makes a difference.
I think that's incredible responsibility when you wear the uniform and lead, to never accept excuses, to understand that the stakes don't get any higher than life and death and the safety and security of the American people. And so with that, no matter how hard something is, you have to find a way to succeed. And that kind of mentality of a refusal to accept failure, a refusal to accept excuses, to tackle hard things and find a way to deliver, like that type of ethos is something our government needs to embrace more of. You know, when I talk to folks all across my district, they're so frustrated over the government dysfunction. And I think about my time in the military and how that was never something that could be tolerated. And so, yeah, we're bringing that passion, that fire to fight for this country just in a very different way to what we're doing now, running for New York 17.
Yeah, you know, it looks like the Republicans perhaps didn't want you to win this nomination, spending a bit of money, $1.5 million at least, so that you don't have to face Lawler. Lay out for us what you plan to run on, what you ran on, and why perhaps you are the challenge Mike Lawler doesn't want.
Mika, he was definitely scared to face me in November. And so they tried to do everything they could to stop me because they know I will beat Mike Lawler and stop the chaos, corruption, and terror that this administration is bringing to America. You know, we were just talking about the conflict that's going on and the responsibility of understanding that the lives of service members matter so much and how the use of force should be something that is only done in the most responsible ways. What we're seeing coming out of this administration is one of the most incompetent cabinets in our nation's history. People who should have never been confirmed in the first place, like Pete Hegseth, like Tulsi Gabbard, but they were, because Congress has failed to do its job. And so the fight to take back New York 17, the case that I make to voters is that they deserve better. You know, New York 17 is a district where there's not enough registered Democrats or Republicans to win with just the base alone. 28% of registered voters are unaffiliated or independent. That means as a candidate, you need to appeal to voters, not just as a party, but as a person. And as a Democrat, that means that for me to beat Mike Lawler, I need to not only motivate the Democratic base and Democrats, but earn the votes of people who I may not share a party with, but I share values with. That's what we did for this primary. And that's what we're going to do in November to take back New York 17 and give people a leader they deserve.
So congratulations on the nomination. So it sounds like you feel like part of this race will be nationalized, right? That the unhappiness of those about President Trump and the leadership of him and his team. But what are some of the local issues that you're encountering there? What are, when you speak to voters each and every day, I assume affordability. What else?
To your point, the impact of this administration and the failure of people like Mike Lawler and this Congress to rein it in is being felt every day. Whether it's people on the streets of our community who are living in fear, to include people, by the way, who are American citizens, who may come from, Hispanic origins, who fear that they may get rolled up by ICE just because of the color of their skin. Like, that's the reality in America. And I want to be very clear. I put the uniform on and fought for this nation to defend freedoms, not to watch our own government tear it away from people right here at home. And so, yes, fear is a concern. Affordability is a concern. We are watching as energy providers across this district are seeking double-digit rate increases at a time where you're already watching as people are making trade-offs between groceries and prescriptions. And now the war in Iran has jacked up gas prices. And so now they're balancing, do I fill up the gas tank or the grocery cart? This administration, what it's done, it has been very clear it does not care about working-class families. It does not care about the problems they are facing. And instead of fighting for those people, instead of fighting for families, Mike Lawler has given Donald Trump a blank check where you have families unable to even balance their checkbook.
I have family that lives in that district, and that area, the Hudson Valley and the region, has a long tradition of being interested in politicians of both parties and even Republicans who they may see as more moderate. So what is your argument specifically against Mike Lawler instead of Donald Trump?
Mike Lawler is a very skilled communicator because he spent the last 20 years as a political operative and political hack, where I've spent the last 20 years leading America's sons and daughters in defense of this nation. Mike Lawler wants to get credit for doing things. He's the guy who starts the fire and then wants credit for calling the fire department when really he is an arsonist. I think this goes back to showing people exactly who he is. He'll say one thing and do something completely different. And that record he's not going to be able to outrun because people are feeling it every day in their homes. His decision to vote for H.R. 1, the one big ugly bill last year, resulted in 37,000 people in my district losing health care coverage, resulted in tens of millions of dollars for SNAP benefits being removed at a time where people are struggling to feed their families. Mike Lawler votes one way, Donald Trump's way, and people are seeing it regardless of how they register to vote.